Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for making the time to join us this evening. My name is Michael. I'm the events coordinator and publicist at Annie Bloom's Books. For those of you who aren't familiar with the store, we're located in Portland, Oregon, in the heart of Multnomah Village. We've been around for 42 years now, and we are still going strong. Let me admit another person here. Hello, new person. Our store is open to in-store shopping with masks still required. We're one of the holdouts in Portland. We're open on weekdays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and weekends from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our website is always open. You can shop at annieblooms.com day and night. We offer curbside pickup, in-store pickup, local delivery, and a couple of different shipping options. We have just one more event before we take a little break from the events to hopefully come back with live events in September. Tomorrow night, we are having Oregon author Kelly Williams Brown. She's the author of Adulting from a few years back. She's going to be reading from her new book, Easy Crafts for the Insane, a mostly funny memoir of mental illness and making things. I love that title. She'll be joined by Amy Dressner, author of the memoir, My Fair Junkie. Tonight, we are delighted to have Dana Spiotta in conversation with Christine Schutt. Let me tell you about Dana's new novel, Wayward. It's a moving, funny, engrossing novel about mothers and daughters and one woman's midlife reckoning from the renowned author of Stone Arabia and Eat the Document. Yay. On the heels of the election of 2016, Samantha Sam Raymond's life begins to come apart. Her mother is ill, her teenage daughter is increasingly remote, and at 52, she finds herself staring at the mids, that hour of supreme wakefulness between 3 and 4 in the morning in which women of a certain age suddenly find themselves contemplating motherhood, mortality, and in this case, the state of our unraveling nation. When she falls in love with a beautiful, decrepit house in a hard-scrabble neighborhood of Syracuse, she buys it on a whim and flees her suburban life and her family as she grapples with how to be a wife, a mother, and a daughter in a country that is coming apart at the seams. We are going to let in Margaret here. Welcome, Margaret. Just reading about Dana's book and the country coming apart at the seams. Dana Spiotta's Wayward is a stunning novel about aging, about the female body, and about female difficulty, female complexity in the age of Trump. Probing and provocative, brainy and sensual, it is a testament to our weird off-kilter America, to reforms and resistance and utopian wishes, and to the beauty of ruins. Tremendous new work from one of the most gifted writers of her generation. Hear, hear. Let's let in Jackson. Hello, Jackson. Dana Spiotta is the author of Innocents and Others, which won the St. Francis College Literary Prize and was shortlisted for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. Stone Arabia, which was a National Book Critics Circle Award finalist. Eat the Document, which was a National Award finalist, Book Award finalist. And Lightning Field. I love Lightning Field. Spiotta was a Guggenheim Fellow, a New York Foundation for the Arts Fellow, and she won the 2008-9 Rome Prize. Margaret, come on. Didn't work last time. All right, here comes Margaret, yay. In 2017, the American Academy of Arts and Letters awarded her the John Updike Prize in Literature. Spiotta lives in Syracuse and teaches in the Syracuse University MFA program. Christine Schutt is the author of 2 collections of stories, Night Work and A Day, a Night, Another Day, Summer. That's a good title. She is also the author of the novels Prosperous Friends, Florida, a National Book Award finalist, and All Souls, a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. Wow. Welcome, Dana and Christine.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm very happy to be here. I've not done one of these before. I mean, Ben, the person who's going to be asking the questions, I did have this experience at Syracuse, and Dana asked me questions, and she was wonderful. So I don't want to waste people's time. I want to be very purposeful and give everyone a real sense of this wonderful novel. And I wanted to start out in a sort of a school teacherly way, because it struck me so. I'm sure you've seen the cover, but if you haven't, this is the cover. And the reason I'm looking at it and want to start that way is because there's a great economy about this story and the way it's presented. And I loved the title in itself, Wayward. And then when I looked up the word, because I just love the sound of it, and I thought it had perhaps nicer connotations, but it says difficult to control or predict because of unusual or, this was the business, perverse behavior. And I thought, well, all right, now that's telling. Anyway, everything. So somebody with perverse behavior, and we just got a pair of, set of keys. And you open this up, and it's very, very beautiful. And the next thing you get is the poet Mary Ruefle, and a line from a poem of hers: "A kind of wild forest blood runs in your veins." And I thought, wow, that's great. So wild forest blood is certainly going to run in perhaps that wayward person's brain. And then the next thing we get is the year 2017. And I cannot look at that year myself, and I think that's probably true of a lot of us, without thinking that was the beginning of the end of the great decline. And we are going to be talking about declines in this book. But it was certainly the start of ever more, I think, anxious and angry time. And the very next page in this novel, all this beautiful white space, very lovely, is just the name Sam. Androgynous, never a Samantha. In this book, and in fact actually becomes a bit more boy-like and tough as she moves along. So I thought, this is fabulous. And then the first chapter is a paragraph, and I'm not going to give you that paragraph. Because I would like to say, as with all great books, everything you need to know is in the first paragraph, and it is there, but it's a bit abstract. It doesn't have all the people yet, and so but we do announce that she is going to do something, and it's all a house's fault, and Syracuse, and that's odd. And right after that, or shortly after that, there is a chapter, or a section that Dana is going to read, and it will set you up all the more. And it's tight as a drum. So you're going to read, are you not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Christine. That was a fantastic. I wish you were my teacher, because if that's the way you teach, wow. Okay. So this section is from Sam's point of view, and she's in the house, and there are little interjections from the real estate agent that I will try to convey. She was the only fantasy lurker attending the open house at 110 Highland Street that Sunday morning. The house was falling apart. The house was beautiful. It had leaded glass windows, built-in shelves, and hidden storage benches. Two of the benches were framed by wood beam closures, the inglenook, and sat at either end of, what she longed for, an elaborate tile-lined fireplace, Mercer Moravian tiles. The tiles were dirty with layers of dust, but still intact. She could pick out a narrative in the relief images. St. George and the Dragon, the agent said. The clay finish was a rustic, uneven glaze, the colors pink, green, and white. She touched her fingertips to the tiles and felt an undeniable connection. Someone on some podcast had talked about grounding. It was when you walked outside with bare feet and let the earth connect with your body. It was supposed to right you, your circadian rhythms or something, help you get over jet lag, or maybe it was to mitigate the endocrine disruption of chronic toxic exposure, or to counter EMF, the low level but constant electromagnetic waves from Wi-Fi and cellular towers. Or maybe all of that, grounding promoted as a systemic cure-all. Sam scoffed at the idea, even despised it as new age crap, yet as her fingers touched the tiles, she felt grounded. There was no other word for it, as if a corrective current flowed from the house through the dusty tile and into her hand and truly her whole body. The tiles were set against patterned deep red brick topped by a mantel made of dark oak, also dirty but intact. Maybe it was Gustav Stickley or it was William Morris who wrote about the arts and crafts ideal, how the fireplace should be a work of everyday art. It looked handmade and warm, and its beauty was in its utility and simplicity. She was cold. She needed a fire. The hearth drew her in, invited her to sit. She now understood the fireplace as a form of secular worship. She imagined it would make her feel close to something elemental. Obviously, the chimney will have to be looked at. To keep her sanity over the long Syracuse winter, Sam needed this beautiful old heat-squandering open fire. At her house in the suburbs, they had a glass-fronted gas fireplace that gave off some regulated, efficient BTUs of heat and a low, exhausting fan hum. The gas flame had a cold blue at its center. This house is on the historic register as the Garrett House. It even has a Wikipedia page designed by the architect Ward Wellington Ward. Yes, I read that in the notice, Sam said. I'm familiar with him. She had seen some of his house plans at the Onondaga Historical Association, meticulous and colored pencil and ink. The 3 W's of his name, the repetition of the wards at each end, and the short, long, short look of it, all drawn in that distinctive arts and crafts lettering. Everything was a work of art, even his name. Oh, good. So you know his houses are very special. Garrett had it built in 1913. After he and his wife died, it fell into neglectful hands, but none of the original details are ruined. Clearly, it needs some TLC, a heating system, electrical updates, new roof, mold abatement, possibly a chimney rebuild, better drainage in the basement, shore up the foundations. But it's still a wonderful house, no? Yes, Sam said. Later, she drove to the big suburban Wegmans and bought some wild halibut, diced sweet potato, and triple washed organic baby spinach for dinner. She got Allie's favorite fruit, mango, and her husband's favorite cereal, no grain vanilla granola, and several liter bottles of that German mineral water she liked. She took the groceries to their house. No one was home yet. And then, instead of cooking, she got in her car and drove back into the city. It was nearly 6 and the sun was starting to go down. The sky was backlit, iridescent, spring bright. And as she drove, she watched the clouds close to the horizon glow pink and orange. She drove back to the city because she had to see the house in this dusk light, this ridiculous, almost garish light. She crested the hill. She pulled into the house's tiny driveway. The roofline was steep and the shitty asphalt tiles were coming undone. But the front windows and the side windows faced the sunset. The city in all directions gleamed, and it looked as if an ocean lay beyond the clouds, some giant lake or shore. Ward Wellington Ward, this architect, he must have known. He thought of the sky and the trees as he designed his house. He knew how much you need those early spring sunsets in Syracuse, even if they glisten off a foot of snow. She retrieved the business card from her coat pocket and called the real estate agent. I want it. The words coming up from some reptilian, perhaps paleo-mammalian, limbric, sublimbric area of her brain, some part of her she never knew existed. I want to make an offer. I mean, can we do that today? It felt easy. She signed the papers and wrote a check for the deposit. Inner life had spilled out and become outer life. She wrote an X in the box to waive the inspection, as is. What drew her to the house was its nature. The house was a paradox, both rustic and elegant. It was contrived to be functional, but emotionally functional. After all, who needs a built-in bench by the fire? The huge hearth was clearly inefficient. Beauty was its own value, as was the experience of living. It felt hand-constructed, personal, yet it reeked of artifice, arts and crafts meant to evoke home and nostalgia through cozy appropriations of English cottages and, oddly enough, some idea of a country church. Also the state of the house, dirty, falling apart, empty for too long. It was wrecked. It was hers. She drove back to her home in the suburb, and only then did she realize as she drove that she was leaving her husband, Matt, that she would go live in the broken down house in the city, the unloved, forgotten house with the view of the unloved, forgotten city. Why? Because she alone could see the beauty. It was meant for her. She shouldn't resist. And saying yes to this version of her life would mean saying no to another version of her life.
Thank you. That was great. That was great. And I do think it's another instance of the economy, the speed about this book, and almost as if it was written with a certain kind of fury. But what's interesting to me is that how willful the woman is from the start, looking for something connected. And I'm interested in her attachment, of course, to Syracuse and everything else. But it's when she goes back and goes to Wegmans and buys the salmon and the diced squash and the triple wash spinach and the special foods for everybody. This is a woman who's has money to buy such nice food and cares about her family and cares about the son, or I mean the daughter, and her husband. She buys some special granola and special foods. They care about these sorts of things. And I thought, my God, you were setting yourself up with this woman, and you were going to have to now defend why she was doing this. It seemed certainly all the things that she seems to want to escape: entitled, white woman, middle-aged, suburban reaction, and seems quite, she seems rather blithe and spoiled. So I'm not on her side. And Matt proposes what I think a lot of us would think, because of that year, 2017, that it was the election. And she says something remarkable about that she realized that he didn't lose as much. It's a line that says, what she realized was the world had moved against her more than it had moved against him. I mean, the nifty thing about this book, of course, is she's going to tick away all of the things that in a course of not, I've seen some people call reinventing herself, that she wants to shed the clothes, the people, the attitudes, the where she lives, the suburban everything. But well, I mean, would you enlarge on what she realized how had the world moved against her?
I think I think that, to get back to this idea of her, I mean, I think she is in a very comfortable, easy place to be in her life, in suburbia, and wealthy and white, and not in a bad marriage. I mean, no one's mean to her or anything like that. But I think, and she's been a nice liberal person her whole life, and you see her earlier in the book, she used to be more of an activist, and so she cares about these things. It's not that she doesn't care, but she realizes, I think, that this terrible feeling of misogyny when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were competing to be president, just the kind of contempt that you could feel in the culture for this older woman. And when it came out that Trump had, said those lines about grabbing pussies or whatever, and we all thought it would take him out, and it didn't, and he won anyway. It really felt like, yeah, there's like a lot of people who have some deep-rooted misogyny, including women. And you can say anything you want about the personalities of the people. It felt very gendered, I think, to me. And I put that in Sam, where the feeling was just kind of shocking. And it's not shocking, because of course that the country has been misogynist and racist and full of inequity. That, you see it, it's everywhere. But you kind of just go along with it until this breaking point. And for her, that breaking point was, how am I complicit in this? And I think a lot of her anger is at herself, because she feels like she is very invested in the status quo, and being middle-aged really puts her in a position of responsibility. She's been on the earth for 52 years. She's been participating, and it's pretty bad,
Right. Yes. I felt her her ache, certainly with Trump, and because a lot of people, I think, were devastated by that. In any event, her next the book is extraordinarily serious and lyrical and glorious in its examination of mothers and daughters and what it means to be a daughter, um, um, and I want to get to those passages too. But the other thing that keeps this book so remarkable in its speed and its is its great wit and her moves in kind of discovering how she can lead a better life, what she can do to have an authentic life. She goes on this journey, and one of the first things she does is she goes online, of course, and she looks at all of these various groups. And what I was wondering when I was reading these outrageous descriptions of you know, the groups out there, including something called the Quivers, the Quiverfuls.
Quiverfuls, that's real.
That is real. I knew I could probably look this up and find that out. Were you enlarge on that? Because I don't think anybody has really looked that up before. I haven't.
Well, she goes on, she joins all these Facebook groups, and they lead her to more groups and more groups. And there's these kind of weird homesteading groups, and you know, sort of at the Venn diagram of the right and the left, there's a lot about caning and fermentation and all these, and women who live, if it were, you know, in the past, but they post on Facebook about it. All of that is real. I mean, I made up some of the names, but all the idea. And the Quiverful people are people who believe that because in the Bible it says so, that you need to have a quiverful, you know, keep your quiver full of Christians. And so they have many, many children. And so, you know, it's kind of easy to have contempt for them. And she feels a lot of she feels multiple ways about many things. Let's put it that way. She's constantly revising her judgments of things, including herself. And I guess we should add that one of the factors here, confounding factors here, is that she does have this menopausal insomnia that is sort of making her a little bit more rash,
right,
than she maybe would be otherwise, right?
Right.
One of there's all these confounding things, and and that midlife pull of the older parents and the children growing up and leaving, right?
Exactly. I mean, I do understand that bind, and she is having all these problems, and she is trying to sort through all the groups, and she doesn't dismiss them. I have to say, though, some of your name, the hardcore hags, harridans, and harpies.
I definitely made that up. Yeah.
Loved it.
But I was just, you know, there are some hag groups where people are very much like, you know, proudly embracing aging. And I think Sam's attracted to that, because I think one of the things I was really wanted to explore in the book was not, I feel like a lot of cultural representation of midlife for women is about, oh, I'm not beautiful anymore. I'm not you know, I don't get looked at by men the way I used to. And that seemed very cliche to me. And I really think there are profound things that happen in middle age and as you age, and beyond worrying about your neck or whatever, you know?
Yes. Yes. No.
Honestly, the whole like not being the cultural object thing starts happening when you're like 30 anyway. So you know.
That's true. But I mean, she comes out with this poignant, simple line about the time that's left. What are you going to do with the time that's left? And I agree with you. I do think women in middle age, and when they are in their own state of decline, are looking for ways in which they can still participate. Motherhood is another thing. That is an employment that will always be, I mean, a complication, but I do understand that she is looking for such things. And eh, she she's funny when she makes her judgments, let's put it that way. When she goes to that first meeting, I feel bitten because I've worn Eileen Fisher clothes a lot. And there's this scene where she says, although Sam was one of the middle-aged women, she too hated the smug entitlement that seemed manifested in their silvery haircuts, their Eileen Fisher linen pants, their expensive ergonomic shoes. I did. I wanted to get under the covers.
Oh, no.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. They often do that, and that when you're talking about how middle-aged women are presented in all their hapless ways. But she sticks with this a group, Lacey, and meets another rather seductive figure.
Yes. MH. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes. Who seems almost, the wonderful thing about Sam is she does know. She thinks the woman is beautiful and I'm interested, but she's also ridiculous.
Right. But she finds her attractive. She's attracted to her anyway. I mean, don't you think you sort of, I think when you're looking to change your life, you kind of are attracted to people that'll give you the things you need to change. You make those new friends and you overlook the things that are maybe the red flags that are flying all around them.
Yes,
because
yes.
you want something they have, and I think that MH has a kind of self-possession and confidence that Sam really wants.
Yes. Yes.
However fake it might be on some level, right?
Right. I don't want to. How are we doing on time? Because I don't want to miss out on Allie and the reading.
All right. So should we do the Allie reading now?
Yes, this is the daughter, and she is 17. Is she 17?
Almost 17. She's like a couple weeks away from 17. Yes.
Right. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to let you just go ahead and
okay.
read.
So, yes, and I guess she's talking about this relationship she started in, and the only thing you need to know is that she is part of this group at school called YAD, which is a kind of and there's some, and she's very interested in etymology and language. She's kind of a hyper achieving young woman. Sex was another thing that was not at all what everyone said it was. It wasn't informed consent like in health class, a script of can I and yes. It was a suicide pact, and equal danger and transgression on both sides as part of what made it exciting. They both needed jeopardy for the connection to be equal. On her side, she could get found out by her parents. She could get pregnant. And if she sent him photos, he would have them, could make some kind of revenge porn out of them, because the texting was going to include photos, wasn't it? They both knew without saying that photos came with the texts. The thought of it, of the transgression, was part of that blooming feeling. The one thing everyone had drilled into her since 5th grade was not to send anyone naked photos ever. Don't believe boys when they promise never to show them to anyone or that they will delete them. But, and in this she was romantic really, even if it sounded otherwise, she would send him photos. What was the point of sex and love if you didn't trust the other person completely? If you were already gaming out the breakup and the after fallout, then you were just acting in bad faith. She had read her Sartre, she had read her Kant, and she had read her Rawls, or in any case, she had read their Wikipedia pages, which were quite extensive. She knew what bad faith was. What all the concerned adults advised was degrading, crude, such as if you do send a naked pic, never show your face with your body. Again, so cynical. They actually want you to disembody yourself, separate your identity from your body to protect you. Everything is doomed if you expect so little of the world, if you expect so little of other people. Besides, what are they protecting you from, even in the scenario that the snap finds its way out from his phone into the wider spheres of the internet? The humiliation, apparently profound and suicide-inducing, of having your body exposed, to be shown in a private act of desire, The message is clear. Our private self must be a source of shame, and the photo will last forever, they warn. You can never scrub it once it's unleashed, which used to terrify her, but she no longer felt that way, terrified. On the one hand, they say they want the culture to be body positive, but when you get down to it, the concerned adults are very wary of your body. Most of what everyone said didn't really apply to her. She understood that now. Besides, Joe would not betray her, but even if he did, she would care more about what it meant about them than the actual fate of her digital images. So the decision to send photos was a fait accompli, or at least a moot point. The first time they met in private in a hotel room, he was visiting Syracuse for business. Instead of staying downtown, he took a room at the Syracuse University Sheraton. That way, it wasn't so hard to get her dad to drop her at the nearby campus library, Bird, which was open until midnight, and you didn't need an ID or anything to get in. She explained that she was working on a research paper, which she pretty much always was, so that part wasn't a lie. Plus, now she had her license, so everything was getting easier. The fact that Joe was one of her CM's citizen mentors, one of her father's friends actually, was not creepy. It was exciting. It was interesting. She got to know him through YAD, which arranged for promising young people to be mentored by community leaders and entrepreneurs. Her father called it YAD, like it rhymed with CAD, even as Allie corrected him, it is YAD, not YAD. Then it should be punctuated like Y.A.D., her mother said, not looking up from her book. Exactly, her father said, laughing. She hated when they bonded over making fun of things she took seriously. What does YAD stand for? Young American Dissidents, her mother said. Young American Disruptors, Allie said, for God's sake. Her mother looked up at her and smiled. Disruptors, right, break stuff and all that. Allie sighed with weariness. Innovators, they are not breaking things, but altering them from within. People with new ideas disrupting the world as they found it to change it for the better. And what are they disrupting, really? The status quo, Allie said. By dint of profit, by building, and here her mother made air quotes, businesses. Look, Allie said, you need to get out of your 80s mentality. Not everything worthwhile is about destroying capitalism. But your mother's a Marxist, honey, her father said. Both her parents cracked up at that. Allie sighed loudly and walked toward the door of the kitchen. I know, her mother said, her voice low now because she was worried that Allie would leave in a huff. I know you get a lot out of it. I just think the name is a bit much. Allie stopped. All of her books in her backpack weighed her down, so her turning back toward her parents made her wobble unsteadily. She spoke over her shoulder, her eyes trained on her mother. Not only are you operating from some woefully outdated paradigm, but you live here in this house, in this suburb, the way you do, and you want me to be a dissident?
It's wonderful. That's wonderful. I am crazy about Allie for all reasons. I find her full of wit, full of purpose, driven, and she's so bold in what she's doing and keeping a secret. And the other thing I guess I do, she's a wonderful, and she's like her mother in some ways, but she's a great contrast in that they don't receive bad news in the same way.
Right.
That Allie is calm and she is, and cool, and it's why she does well and tests and everything else. Nevertheless, knowing that this fellow is 29 or something, I mean, he's old for her, and this it probably is exciting. And like her mother too, for a while, she has this secret that if Sam has her secret group of friends, and Allie has Joe. What interested me about her, though, is in this whole scene is I was afraid things were going to go the wrong way with the naked pictures and everything else. And when she acts very boldly in that regard and sends him something, the writing, this is what you wrote. She will make it, when she sends him her first naked pic, she will make a joke about it, that he now had something on her. So they were taking equal risks. Feminism, liberation to Allie meant figuring out how to make the power and the risk equal. I thought that's so advanced. I was born at the wrong time. I've missed all of that. It's grand. It seems that that could be protective. Did you think of it that way, or do you think of it that way?
Well, Allie is at that dangerous age where her brain is really smart as it will ever be, but
Yeah.
she doesn't have experience in the world. And so she thinks she knows things that she doesn't really know, like what it will feel like when you break up with someone and they still have pictures of you, and what it will feel. I mean, these are the things that they're not conceptual, they're not intellectual, they're emotional. And
Yeah.
so but she has to discover for herself the limits of her being able to use her logic to figure out the right answer. I do think she's onto something in the sense that power is important and complicated in sexual relationships, in all relationships, right? And and sometimes adults tell you things because they want to keep you from making mistakes, which is good, but they don't always tell you the full story, right? And so then you start to question what else are they telling you that's not true, right? So I think she's complicated, and she's dangerous, I think. But I also think she's resilient too at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, no, I thought she was very resilient and very mistrustful of adults, even from the time she was in second grade or first grade, when the teacher called Sam in. But even then, Allie thought, they're keeping things from me. They're not telling us the whole story. Yeah, so
she doesn't like to sleep by herself. She thinks that's not fair, right? She's
right.
She is right on that one. I think
yes, absolutely.
It is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. We should all let our children stay with us forever. I wish now that I mean, anyway, that all goes by very, very, very quickly.
But she also, I would just add that she's also someone who has, enormous privilege, really. And she, and I think, she distinguishes herself from her mother with her libertarian boyfriend and his developer, he's a developer.
Yes.
And then, I think that she does start to see with her own experience just the flaws in the thinking. She can't be told by her parents, be this person. She has to figure it out for herself by really engaging it. And so I admire her for that. She's thinking and figuring things out,
I admired her for the fact that she didn't like the Fountainhead from the start.
Yeah,
I was a complete sucker for Ayn Rand and even went so far as to read Atlas Shrugged. I thought my English teacher would be impressed. He was not. So that Allie was dismissing. Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think she's very, very smart. Setting these characters up and their estrangement, because Allie's angry at what Sam's doing, and that's again another thing that I thought, it's wonderful. You keep on putting up these things that it's going to make it harder for us to, well, you're going to have to dig deep, and you do, to get us to embrace Sam, because I thought, she's leaving this girl in her junior year in high school. That's the most important year of all. So I'm with Allie and being angry about this. Anyway, then you bring them together in two very important scenes. And before I let the other people in attendance ask questions, one of the tests that Sam undergoes is to perform at a comedy club. She's been told by MS, that H rather, that you'll be entirely different, and anyway, Sam decides to do this, and Allie, as it happens, is in attendance. And I wondered how you went about writing that. I felt such anguish and upset and embarrassment. And so as a writer, you're putting her in the most awful place.
Yeah. Well, that scene was actually what I started with. I had this idea of, a woman. It was before the Hannah Gadsby thing, which was sort of like that serious kind of stand up. But the
Yes.
idea was that that she would just be confrontational and in everyone's face about who she was as this older woman. And MH does it brilliantly. She talks about all these things that no one's supposed to talk about her body, and stares people down. And Sam can't do it. Doesn't do the same thing for her, just humiliates her. And then she starts babbling about her daughter and brings her daughter in, and she further ruptures an already ruptured relationship because she has these problems with these boundaries. That was hard to write because it's the last thing on the earth I would ever do is go on stage and do what she does. And I think sometimes in novels you have this character and you're just, you kind of put them in jeopardy. I mean, you remember our old teacher, Gordon Lish, turn towards the jeopardy, right? And you keep putting them in jeopardy and you want to see what they're made of, right? And it just keeps escalating. And then the consequences that come out of that take you into this deeper and weirder and darker place. And so she is reckless, but she's also kind of brave in a way that I found interesting to follow, and and she really is at that point in the novel, without giving too much away, she's really, driven herself to the brink. Let's put it that way. Physically, mentally, emotionally. And a lot of it is of her own making, but it doesn't help her. It's a sort of crucible for her to go through. Yeah.
Right. No, it is. That's one of the questions about what she had made happen, what she had insisted upon, and then what had happened to her in the very opening paragraph, those ideas. Well, anyway, I do want to say that I didn't think it sounded like something you would research or do. Or it was very painful. It was really very painful to read. It was very effective. I wanted to turn it over to Mike if people have started to ask questions.
We don't have anything in the chat yet, as I typed in there. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or just pop on screen if you like and ask these authors.
Okay. All right. Well, then good. With
Back
that,
to you, Christine.
yes, back to me. Back to me. I don't want to give away too much, but I do like the way all of this action escalates when you're talking about putting characters in jeopardy, putting characters in circumstances where they're real metal or what they're made of is going to come out. One of the things that Sam does is decide to become very strong and tough. Again, that reminded me of something that you and I once talked about. TRX and all of these exercises and trying to get as strong as you can be. And I mean, it's a combination of her, and she is getting stronger, and she does cut her hair and spiky. At the same time, she's becoming physically stronger. She's more of this anger, this this almost free-floating anger that comes out of a point in her life when things are on the decline, and she can't face perhaps what's happened, what her mother will certainly, simply because she is her mother, most likely will predecease her. So there's that very much on her mind. So she's getting stronger, but she's getting angrier, wildly angry. It seemed to me dangerously angry. And on top of that, then, and I'm, as a reader, I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated by women's anger. I love the fact that more and more women and more writers are taking it up, and where it comes from. But one of the things you suggest in a scene that combines the weight lifting and the anger at the men and their, presumptions and speaking over her and everything else is, she's in the gym and she sees something that really brings back to her perhaps what's really the real ache. And I do think it's the great ache in this book, and it's just a wonder, which is the subject of motherhood. And so I was wondering if, while people are mulling things over, I wanted from the beginning, I knew the minute I read this book for the first time, I thought, oh my God, that's such a glorious a scene. It's I think it's on 120? It's in the gym, or no, maybe that's too soon. Yes, right here it is. I'm sorry, it's on page 123.
Okay.
And just yeah, yes, just just read the first two. You can't read all probably. Just let's go as far as we can. Start from the beginning though. This is utterly gorgeous, I thought.
After weightlifting, she walked to the shower area, which was open. She heard laughing. A woman was showering with her adult daughter who had Down syndrome or something like it. The mother poured water on the daughter's round belly from a little bucket, and the daughter laughed and hugged her. They were naked and joyful, and Sam didn't want to make them self-conscious, but she found herself mesmerized. They had old-looking bodies, daughter in her late 40s, mother in her late 60s, and Sam had never seen naked old bodies in a state of play. They didn't notice Sam, they were busy. The mother washed her daughter with a soapy washcloth. Sam showered, not watching them, but hearing them. The daughter bellowed when her mother rinsed her. Sam glanced at them and then down at her own old body as she washed. There was a lie in young, fit bodies. There was something human touching in the older body in its honest relationship to decay and time. Seeing the two women's bodies, Sam felt a form of enchantment. To look, to behold, to abide age gave her an almost narcotic clarity. She could, for this moment, as long as it lasted, see and face what life really was. It was as if people mostly live in a state of terror about what is to come, what is happening to their bodies. It wasn't just terror, it was shame. You had to hide the shame of your body's age and your body's fragility from others and from yourself. This state of terror and shame made us desperate, cruel, occasionally savage. But here was human joy. Here was human love, joy, innocence. The mother wrapped her daughter in a towel and used a second towel to dry her daughter's long hair. The daughter moaned again. The mother caught Sam glancing at them and smiled at her as if to say, I know you get it. I know you see us. Maybe I'll stop there.
Yes, that's great. That's quite wonderful. A wonderful moment.
We do have a question from
Good.
David Nutt. Dana, did anything surprise you about the book as you worked on it? And any unexpected turns, detours, reversals?
Yes. I didn't think that the book would, the shape of the book really kind of change as I was working on it. I thought it was mostly going to all be from Sam's point of view. And then I really thought I wanted to hear, I wrote a scene from the daughter's point of view just to kind of get a sense of her. And then this voice came out and I understood who she was. And I realized that she would be answering some of Sam's things, and they would even have these overlapping scenes that you see from twice from each different point of view, which happens, I think, 3 times in the book. And then the formal kind of waywardness of the book that happens in the second half, which I don't really want to spoil, but things kind of go a little crazy in terms of the narrative point of view and the voices that you hear in the second half of the book before it returns to Sam again. And that surprised me. I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought it was just going to be, you know, close third person Sam on her journey. And I'm glad that those things happen, because I think often what happens when you're working on a novel is that as you're progressing through it, a structure, you have an idea of where you're going in your head, but then as you're working on it, the book is teaching you something that you start listening to, and that really gets this, that's where you get these kind of more innovative shapes, I think. And that's what takes you into another level, where it's not just executing the thing you had in your head, but it's a sort of, it becomes more of an act of creation as you're working on it. And that's a good thing. That's what you want to happen, but it's, yeah, it surprised me quite a bit. Thank you, David Nutt, for your question. Anyone?
Great moment. And for me as a reader, I really loved it when the daughter's voice came in. It was unexpected for me. And yeah, I was like, wow, okay. This level, it's going to another level here, this novel.
Yeah, and it gives you a break from Sam, right? Which could be pretty relentless if you have her the whole time. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, anyone?
Okay.
All right, well, we might be at the natural ending point.
Okay.
We are at the ending point.
Oh, did you have a final?
No. It just went back. It went very fast.
Oh my God. I just want to say, since we have this moment, that Christine Schutt is one of my heroes. She's a brilliant writer, and as well as a brilliant teacher. And I'm so pleased and honored to be sharing the virtual screen with you, Christine. Can't wait to see what you write next.
Well, I'm very, very happy to be here. It was a lot of fun. And it was hard just to stop asking personal questions. So until we meet again.
Yes, we'll have to meet and have many personal questions.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Annie Bloom's books. I hope you sell a lot of this wonderful novel.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And thank you everybody for coming on a Monday night. I really appreciate this.
Yes, thank you, everyone. This is being recorded, so you can tell folks to check it out on our YouTube channel. I'll put it up tomorrow sometime, so by the afternoon should be available for you to share with others.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.